I'm Kaylee, and these are all the books that I read in July. I had an amazing reading month in July. I got so much reading done. If you watched my July TBR video, you know that my goal was to read 21 books in July, and I fell short just a little tiny bit. I finished 20 books, and there was only one book that didn't get finished. I still have a few pages left in that one. But before we dive into all the books and the statistics and how many pages I read and everything, make sure that you subscribe to this channel and give this video a like if your reading has been going really well lately, like mine has. And be sure to follow me over on Instagram and Goodreads and Storygraph and all the places. I read 20 books in July. I read 4 classics, 1 fantasy, 2 mystery, 3 YA, 2 middle grade, 2 children's, 6 manga, and I DNF'd a book. So it was kind of 21, but with the DNF, it was just 20. I had a goal to read 170 pages every day, and I had a little chart where I kept track of how many pages I was reading each day. Some days it was like 300 pages, and other days it was like 62 pages. So it was kind of up and down through the month, but I got almost everything read. As always, we're going to start out with the classics, and of course, because of Jane Austen July, I read some great classics. I reread Persuasion, but this year I reread it in Spanish. It has been one of my personal goals each Jane Austen July to reread Jane Austen, but in Spanish, and I've really enjoyed that the last few years. I've read Emma and Sense and Sensibility, and now Persuasion in Spanish. Persuasion is absolutely a perfect masterpiece of a book. It's probably my second favorite Austen right after Emma. Every time that I reread it, I love it more and more, and I see more little details in the characters' personalities. I love that there are just all these sweet little moments between Anne and Captain Wentworth, like just a gesture, a little glance. But of course, it's full of meaning. Rereading it this time in Spanish was a little bit different. It was kind of interesting to revisit this story from a little bit of a different perspective and see how it's translated into another language. I feel like the translation I had wasn't particularly good. There were some errors, there were some spelling issues and some punctuation issues. It's just very difficult to find good translations in Spanish, it seems like. However, I still enjoyed it, and it was still this fresh new perspective on Jane Austen. Years ago, I did a whole separate video with all of my in-depth thoughts about Persuasion, and so you can go over and see that video if you want to hear more about how much I love Persuasion. Another classic that I read was The Flirt by Booth Tarkington. Cora flirts with anything in pants, and she overshadows her older sister Laura at every party. And when the handsome Valentine shows up in town, Cora gets to work. She flirts with him and actually ignores her own fiancé. But the fiancé and a whole string of ex-boyfriends are not content to be ignored. And Laura and the rest of the family have to put up with an avalanche of men in and out of their house. Their little brother Hedrick decides to get his revenge on his sisters. He's always getting into mischief, but this time he could cause real trouble for Cora and Laura. I really have no idea what this book was. Sometimes it's a romance, sometimes it's a comedy, sometimes it's part like crime, mystery, something. And then there was this one scene of murder-suicide that was completely out of place with the tone of the rest of the book. All these characters are utterly insane. I really disliked Cora. I mean, she is a nut job flirting with all those men, and she's trying to manipulate everybody. I mean, the girl is a pathological narcissist, okay? Laura was much more sensible and caring, but she enables her horrible sister. The whole family enables Cora in her selfish behavior, and I just hated it so much. However, the writing is so fascinating. I mean, it's like this gorgeous train wreck of a book, and you just can't look away. I read the entire book in one day. In one day, I could not stop reading. It was just such a beautiful train wreck. I was just mesmerized by these insane characters. I can honestly say I've never read anything quite like this. I gave it 3.5 stars. I don't know what to do with all that. One of the prompts for Jane Austen July is to read something from one of Jane Austen's contemporaries, and this year I chose Belinda from Maria Edgeworth. I finished reading this, I think 4 or 5 days ago, and I'm still thinking it through. I still have not written my review of Belinda because there are just so many layers in there, and I'm still trying to really pinpoint what I think. I can't decide what kind of star rating to give it or anything. There are just so many things to consider. So I keep putting off writing my review, and I keep putting it off and putting it off. So I'm afraid I don't have a review for you. I really enjoyed it, I can tell you that much. It's just beautiful and so dramatic and so emotional. And I loved Belinda's character. And so many of the characters are extremely complex. The plot was super dramatic. The writing was absolutely witty and sparkling through every chapter. It was funny, it was heartbreaking, it was wonderful. But I have so many thoughts about this one. So sometime in the next week, I am going to try to sit down and actually write my review and then film a separate review video and let you know all the in-depth thoughts about Belinda. So be on the lookout, that is coming soon. I also finished listening to the audiobook of The Two Towers. This is a continuation of the June Journeys with Inklings readathon, where you can just extend the readathon as long as you need to complete your reading. So right in the middle of July, I finished up listening to The Two Towers and just loved the audiobook narrated by Andy Serkis. And then I dove right into Return of the King, so I'm about halfway through Return of the King now, and I'll be finishing that up in August. I cannot exaggerate enough how much I love the narration from Andy Serkis. It is just perfect in every particular. Now, unfortunately, the DNF this month was also a classic. It was My Utmost for His Highest by Oswald Chambers. And this one really hurt my heart to DNF. I've been reading through it a little bit at a time for several months. And finally in July, I just said, you know what? This is just not for me. I am not enjoying this. It feels like a chore to read it instead of it being a joy. I just had so many issues with this book. So I DNF'd it at page 190, which is about halfway through. There were a lot of passages that I didn't understand, that maybe somehow got lost in translation or something. So this is a daily devotional book where you only have 3 or 4 paragraphs about some sort of spiritual concept or something to read each day. So it's a daily reading. But I think part of the problem is that the author is trying to tackle these serious, big, cosmic, spiritual issues in just 3 or 4 paragraphs, and he just doesn't have room to explain what he means. And so a lot of his meaning just gets lost, or at least it was lost on me. Some of the passages were really insightful and encouraging, but most of the time I did not enjoy this book. I tried to push myself to keep going, but I finally just decided I just can't anymore. And it's a big disappointment because I've always heard such great things about Oswald Chambers, and I've read many quotes of his that are really inspiring. So it was just doubly disappointing to end up DNFing it. The book that I couldn't finish in July is Mind of the Maker by Dorothy Sayers. The reason is I've just been reading through this very, very slowly. I read 2 or 3 pages or maybe 5 pages and then kind of stop and digest everything that I just read and think about it for a couple of days. And then I'm ready to dive in for another little nugget. But everything in this book is just so mind-blowing. You really have to take the time to kind of stop and think about what you are reading and kind of what the implications are. And it's all about how God created us with a creative mind, to be sub-creators. He made us in his image, and he is a creator. And so we are also little mini creators as well. It goes into the nature of the Trinity and how the creative mind kind of comes up with ideas. I have been enjoying this so much. I only have about 80 pages left, so I'll definitely be able to finish this one in August. One of the mysteries that I read was also a classic from Agatha Christie, Evil Under the Sun. This is a Poirot book, and of course I absolutely adore and love Poirot so much. I've already done a whole nother video all about Evil Under the Sun, so be sure to go over and watch that video if you want to hear about Poirot and Agatha Christie murder mysteries. This one was a really good one, so go over and watch the video to hear about it. The other mystery that I read was Aunt Dimity and the Summer King by Nancy Atherton. This is the 20th book in the Aunt Dimity series. So Aunt Dimity is a ghost, and she communicates with her goddaughter Lori through a supernatural journal where they write back and forth to each other. Lori meets an eccentric inventor, and his grandchildren have dubbed him the Summer King. She gets to know him and his family, and she wonders, why has she never met him before? Why is there a huge feud between his family and the entire village? And she sets out to solve the mystery of this ancient feud. This book made me laugh. It was fun and fluffy and adorable, and I love Aunt Dimity. It's very silly and dorky, and I completely love every book in this series. This one just put a smile on my face. The fantasy that I read was Tooth and Claw by Jo Walton. I first purchased this book because Bella Swan mentions it as one of her favorite books in the Twilight series. So I was like, well, I have to take a book recommendation from Bella Swan. Let's just see what this is all about. The author says that they got their inspiration from Anthony Trollope, except it's told with the characters are all dragons. So I came into it with really high hopes, and I did not care for this book that much. This is all about these siblings that when their father dies, there's a dispute over the inheritance, and they go to law, and then there are these sisters who have no prospects for marriage. Their dowry is very small, and they have to rely on their wealthier relatives to support them. So there's a lot of politics and noble families kind of scheming against each other, and there's a little bit of romance. The world building was really fascinating because you have all the polite society rules of Victorian England, but you know, it's dragons. But because this is a cutthroat society of dragons who eat each other to gain power, there are quite a few descriptions of blood and gore and guts. There are also instances of sexual harassment and violence. It ended up just being kind of disturbing to read about. Most of the characters are either selfish or downright evil. There were only a couple of the characters that I really even liked. So I found myself kind of dragging through this one because there would be whole chapters from the perspective of a character that I didn't care for. So I lost a lot of my reading momentum in July because I was not enjoying this book so much. However, I can definitely see where the author got that inspiration from Anthony Trollope. The writing has kind of this old-fashioned style. I did like the world building, and I did like some of the characters, and I can definitely appreciate the compelling writing style. So I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I read Princess of the Midnight Ball by Jessica Day George. This is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, but it's told from the perspective of Galen, who is a soldier who comes home from the war and gets a job as a gardener in the palace gardens. And when the princesses are wearing out their shoes every night dancing, then the king gives Galen special permission to investigate and find out where are the princesses going, where they are dancing so much that they wear out their dancing shoes. I really loved how this one follows the basic plot structure of the 12 Dancing Princesses fairy tale, but there are some imaginative additions and some interesting side characters. The magic was especially interesting as you see the dual sides of light and dark magic. And I really loved Galen. He is a complex and clever and resourceful character. It was really adorable to see how he really cares about the princesses. And there was a very sweet and clean romance between Galen and the oldest princess, Rose. This was really enchanting, and I gave it 4 stars. I read Reawakened by Colleen Houck, which is the first book in a trilogy. In this one, Lily is swept away in an adventure when she meets an ancient Egyptian prince. He has slumbered for 1,000 years, but now he has been reawakened. And they are in a race against time to resurrect his brothers so that they can perform an ancient ceremony to stop the evil god Seth from wreaking chaos in the world. So of course the best part of this book is learning about all the Egyptian gods and legends. The adventure is really exciting. There's a lot of mysteries and twists. I read the entire book in 2 days. One of the things I loved about this book was seeing the hilarious interactions between the 3 brothers. After thousands of years in the afterlife together, they really love to tease and pester each other. They have such a fun, witty repartee. And they love to tease each other in front of Lily to see how she reacts. And it's just so adorable. The romance between Lily and her Egyptian prince is very heartfelt and sweet. I gave Reawakened 4 stars. And I read the first book in the Magnus Chase series, The Sword of Summer. Magnus has been living on the streets ever since his mother died. And Magnus's weird old uncle tells him that their family has always been involved with the gods of Norse mythology. His uncle tells him that he must find the long-lost Sword of Summer. But when a fire giant attacks Boston, Magnus has no idea how to fight a giant, much less find some long-lost sword that's been gone for centuries. I just loved this book so much. It has all the sass and the adventure and the legends that I've come to expect from Rick Riordan. The best part of this book is how Magnus goes from having no family at all to having a whole bunch of close friends who are willing to stand by his side in battle. I just love a good found family trope, and this one is really fantastic. It's so beautifully heartwarming, and Magnus goes through this huge character arc as he learns to trust his new friends. And of course, I love learning all about the Norse gods and the ancient legends. And you can always count on Rick Riordan to be hilariously irreverent when it comes to the ancient gods. So it was really fun to see how Thor and Odin and Freya are reimagined in these really funny ways. I gave this book 5 stars, and I'm really looking forward to reading more from Magnus Chase. I also read Habibi by Naomi Shihab Nye. In this book, Liliana's father moves their family from America back to his hometown in Jerusalem. Tensions are high between the Jewish and Arab peoples, but Liliana befriends a Jewish boy. Her family kind of don't know how to react. They believe in peace between all peoples, but can they really accept someone who's just so different from them? I really loved the messages of peace and acceptance in this book, and this story does not shy away from the tragic history and violence in Jerusalem, but it's also full of hope for a peaceful future. Personally, I just found this book upsetting to read because of all the racism and violence. I liked the introspective writing style, but I didn't actually like Liana's character. So I ended up giving it 2 stars. Some good things, some bad, but just maybe this book just wasn't for me. I also read volumes 7 through 12 of the Ouran High School Host Club manga. I've been really enjoying my reread through the manga, and I only have 6 more volumes to go to read in August. I think I gave all of these 4 or 5 stars because I just enjoy this series so much. The rest of the books in this video are books that I received for free from a publisher in exchange for a free and honest review. I read Unicornia, the Cupcake Contest. So I requested this from the publisher to then share with my nieces. And it's about this little baking contest where they have to muse magical ingredients. It's completely adorable, and I gave it 5 stars. And I also read Solo. This is about a girl who is devastated when her boyfriend breaks up with her, and she gives up on music. And then she has to kind of find her way out of depression and discover how much she loves music again. I just hated this book so much. I hated the main character. I hated all the nasty profanity. I hated that there was sexual content in a book that is for teenagers. This book was just absolutely horrible in so many ways. I hated that the main character has this really unhealthy obsession with her boyfriend, and she uses her depression to then lash out at the people around her. And if I could give it 0 stars, I would, but I just gave it 1 star because it's awful. If you want to see exactly what objectionable content was in this book, you can check it out on the Screen It First website because it has been screened. Just a warning though, some of it is rather graphic, so maybe if you're over 18, then you can check it out on Screen It First. And I also read Giant. Davy comes from a poor Irish family living in Belfast. His mother works as a maid at the Lewis household. When Davy comes to the house to help his mother with her work, he befriends a young C.S. Lewis, who is nicknamed Jack. The boys bond over their love of stories and imagination, and Jack discovers that Davy is actually a pretty good artist. So Jack will write a story and then Davy will draw the illustrations to go with the story. However, Davy has to take a dangerous job at the shipyard, and Jack is sent off to a boarding school in England. So can their friendship survive despite their different paths in life? I really loved that this book follows the actual true events of C.S. Lewis's life, but Davy is a fictional character and their friendship is fictional. C.S. Lewis is portrayed as a gentle and sensitive boy who has a wonderful imagination, and he inspires Davy to dream that he could have a life beyond the poor drudgery that his parents have had in their jobs. Davy dares to believe that his life could change, and that gives him the courage to continue developing his artistic talents. I just loved this sweet story of friendship. It's very heartwarming, really emotional. Although the plot is slow and thoughtful, I really liked that. This was absolutely adorable, and I gave it 3.5 stars. And those are the books that I read in July. Please leave me a comment and let me know what was one of your favorite books that you read this past month. And be on the lookout for my August TBR video, because I have a whole nother stack of bunches of books that I am eager to dive into in August. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.